Dockets number 0506, 0807, 0808, 0980, and 1024, several surplus and discontinuance orders in the City Council's Committee on Planning, Development, and Transportation. My name is Michelle Wu, and I'm chair of this committee. I am joined by my colleague, District 1 City Councilor Lydia Edwards, and I know several other colleagues plan to join in as well. Just a quick reminder that this public hearing is being recorded and broadcast live on channels Comcast 8, RCN 82, and Verizon 1964, as well as webcast on the City of Boston website. Please silence your cell phones and other devices, and we'll take public testimony at the end if anyone is so moved to sign in on the public testimony sheets close to the door. These dockets were sponsored by the mayor and referred to this committee on, one on April 4th, two on May 23rd, another on June 20th, and the last on June 27th. Just as a formality, I do have to read all of them into the record, so bear with me, and then we'll pass it over to the administration's representatives. Docket number 0506 is message in order to declare surplus city-owned former Public Works Department parcel property known as Leo M. Birmingham Parkway in Allston, Brighton, to transfer care, custody, management, and control of said property to the Public Facilities Commission. Docket number 0807 is a message in order to declare surplus city-owned former Public Facilities Department parcels with vacant building and to transfer the care, custody, management, and control of said property to the Public Facilities Commission. The land is located at 48 Tilliston Street in the North End District and 50 Tilliston Street in the North End District, Wards 3, parcels 0229 5000 and 0229 4000. Docket 0808 is a message in order for approval to authorize a sale of a certain portion of public way known as 90 Cottage Street in East Boston, as shown on a plan of land entitled City of Boston Public Works Department Engineering Division Discontinuance Plan Vertical 90 Cottage Street, East Boston, dated November 21st, 2017, specifically containing about 16.9 square feet and 533 cubic feet, known as the discontinuance parcel. Docket 0980 is message in order to declare surplus city-owned former Boston Redevelopment Authority parcels of vacant land and courthouse, and to transfer the care, custody, management, and control of said property to the Public Facilities Commission. The land is located at a portion of 135 Dudley Street, Roxbury, Mass., being Ward 12, parcel 0011800000, consisting of approximately 156,788 square feet of vacant land and courthouse, but specifically excluding the portion of the assessor's parcel retained for library use. A portion of 2406 Washington Street, Roxbury, being parcel 12, Ward 12, parcel 01263,000, consisting of approximately 4,480 square feet of land adjacent to 135 Dudley Street, but specifically excluding the portion of the assessor's parcel retained for police use. It is also message in order to declare surplus city-owned, we read that already. And finally, docket number 1024, message in order authorizing a sale of certain portion of public way known as Everett Street in Allston, as shown on a plan of land entitled City of Boston Public Works Department Engineering Division Discontinuance Plan, Everett Street, Allston, dated March 22nd, 2018, specifically containing about 4,417 square feet, also known as a discontinuance parcel. Okay, before we turn it over, is there anything you'd like to give as an opening statement, Councilor Edwards?
Thank you.
Okay, so if the administration officials could please introduce yourself, your name and your role for the record, and then if you have any opening statement, but then I'll guide us through a couple questions and then we'll go parcel by parcel after that.
Donald Wright, Deputy Director of Real Estate Management and Sales in the Department of Neighborhood Development.
James M. McDonough, Jr., Attorney, Department of Neighborhood Development.
Amy Cording, Chief Engineer of the Public Improvement Commission.
Great. Would anyone like to give an overview at all, or do you have only parcel specific?
Parcel specific.
Okay, great. So why don't we pause on parcel specific? I have a few sort of broad questions because, as I mentioned, this is my first time chairing this type of, discontinuance parcels. So if you could just let us, give us a quick overview of what the difference is between surplus and discontinuance in general, and kind of how the different city agencies have a role in that?
Good morning. Under the statute which created the Department of Neighborhood Development, the department has authority to sell tax foreclosed parcels of real estate and also parcels of real estate that have been deemed surplus by the city of Boston. In this case today, all three of these parcels that we have, 0506, 0807, and 0980, were previously assigned to other city departments which no longer have use for them. As a result, we are here to ask that they be surplus by the city council, which will then allow us to issue requests for proposals and to dispose of the properties, either to provide for affordable housing or sometimes for revenue or whatever we determine is best for the particular parcel after consultations with the neighbors. In terms of a discontinuance of a city street, the city has rights based on some past action to control the disposition of the street. The city either owns the street parcel or it just has the right to use it as a public way. By giving up the rights to discontinue it, we can work then with the abutters or whatever we want to do in order to sell or dispose of the real estate.
Okay. And so the end goal is the same in both, but the terminology is to recognize that one is public way.
So the ones that are discontinued, those were part of a public right-of-way, and the first step is to discontinue the public rights to travel for that piece of property. And then we're essentially creating a public works parcel, which pushes us back into very much the scenario with surplus, where we now have a public works parcel that used to be for roadway purposes that we no longer need and can then be, sold.
And you'll be into that, so basically it's kind of two separate steps because you need the two different approvals from the council. So you would be back later with those requests
Right.
once.
So Public Works has a bunch of parcels of land that we might still hold for roadway purposes, but are not in a right-of-way, and those are the parcels where, if they're not needed, can be just straight surplus to D&D. But anything that's currently within a roadway would need to be first discontinued from out of the right-of-way of that road prior to being surplused or sold.
Okay, great. So I apologize, I didn't get to look in detail at each of these, but most of these surplus parcels are public works, but there was a former BRA parcel, is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
That's the Roxbury one, okay.
Yes.
And that's in the, in the urban renewal district?
Yes.
And that's how that happened. Okay, got it. So now that we have a sense of kind of the stages at which there are two different groups, I would like to go in order geographically just so we can accommodate different counselor schedules, because Counselor Edwards was here first. Why don't we start with docket number 0807, which is the surplus request in the north end.
Yes. So, councilors, we're here to seek a surplus vote for 48 to 50 Towson Street in East Boston. It came to us as part of a land swap. The building currently in this position is built out as a commercial space. We're right now researching the historic context of the building. It is in the historic registry. And it was named after the founder of the North Bennett School as well. There is some interest by a local music school, and we will vet that through our community process. And that's pretty much it, Council.
Okay. Any questions, Counselor Edwards?
We would then be issuing an RFP for the property.
Right.
Yes,
Unless we gave it to a school department or somebody like that.
Right.
But if we are going to sell it or dispose it, we'll go through a full 30B process in order to sell it. We'll
Right.
get it appraised, and we'll go from there.
Is that that's for both buildings?
Yes.
The music
Yes.
school's interested in both buildings, right?
I believe so, yeah.
So they touch each other?
Yes.
Okay.
So our plan is, literally to start our due diligence, our normal process by which we engage the community on how we will repurpose the site.
And when you do or go to draft the RFP, tell me about the community involvement in that.
So we will go out, and there's some general purposes by which sites can be, traditionally reused. But we also go out and engage the community to find out if there are alternative uses that they would like to see. And at that point, we incorporate that language into our development guidelines. And then at that point, when we issue the RFP, we have not only sort of design-specific criteria to the site, but we also have the community input that really focuses in on the types of responses that we would have.
And how long does that process usually take when you're doing the community involvement?
Well, I mean, it could take, as little as, 30 days if it's not something that needs a bit of back and forth. It does normally take a little longer than that, just kind of based on schedules, allowing for folks to have enough time to look at the guidelines and sort of engage with, say, my project management staff. There may be a call to go back out and engage the community again, but we're not moving in a pace that's only our agenda, so to speak.
Right.
Our plan is to move when the community is ready to move as well.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Mrs. Nempak?
Ms. Nempak.
Okay. And can you tell me a little bit about the timing of the council's approval relative to the RFP? Is it that you don't want to put out the RFP until you're sure that the ownership has been transferred?
Right, and so what our normal process would be to, issue an RFP, after surplus. And so, this will allow for us to engage the community again, as I said, and ultimately get to that point of getting out that RFP.
Okay. And is there any scenario in which you would anticipate this parcel to be, after surplus, go to a private developer for profit and not to a community organization?
No, I think our goal in this is start the overall engagement. And then from that standpoint and hearing what the constituency has to say, then again, we would tailor that RFP from there.
The Boston Finance Commission usually likes us to put language in that says if somebody makes us a wonderful offer, that we consider accepting it for private development, based if the development meets with the community approval, and we're going to get an awful lot of money. Usually that doesn't happen. People come in, they not only want us to give them the building, but they want us to give them development funds to rehab the building, to do whatever they want to do with it. But there is that potential, yes, that it could be a revenue sale, but it would only be if, as I said, a very large amount of money came in and after a community process.
So there would be one process to gather feedback from the community in terms of what they want. If during that process, then a developer approaches the city and says, I'm willing to pay, then it...
Developer would have to respond to the RFP, same as anybody else.
Okay.
And then if the city were to judge it, that was the one we wanted to take, we could do that, yes.
Would there be further community process around that? Or
Yes, oh, yes.
Okay. But only after the decision has been made?
Not after the decision,
I
before the
see.
decision. Right.
Okay, got it. So so just for the record publicly, the intention here is to either work with the music school or another community organization, because that's kind of the sense of the neighborhood right now, but there will be more formal process to determine that. There will be an RFP issued, and then if during that process a private offer is not in line with what the community had said, there would be further process before selecting that and handing that over.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions on this one?
No.
You're good? Okay. So let's move to, I know there was an East Boston one. Let me see. 0808.
90 Cottage Street. So it's 90 Cottage Street? So it's a discontinuance that's about 6 feet wide and 2.8 feet deep. The purpose is for balconies on the 90 Cottage Street development. So they needed to first discontinue the air rights for this that hang over the public right-of-way, which they've done through the Public Improvement Commission. This yields a public works parcel that we're now here to surplus in the same fashion.
Any questions?
Yeah, or just a comment. So my understanding is this is a private ownership, person building a house, and that it's been vetted thoroughly by the community already. So there's been a robust community process. The community organizations have approved this project and support it. This is really just for them to be able to build a balcony that would cover somewhat over the sidewalk.
Right, so the first step is, do we need these air rights for the use of the street? And based on where they were located and the process they went through, we determined that it would not impact the usage of the street, but they need to acquire the rights to those air rights to be consumed into the parcel so that they have clean title of their property.
Okay. This is good, simple kind of thing. Okay.
Okay, and so just again, in terms of timeline, we vote to discontinue, and then when would you be back before the council?
So the Public Improvement Commission has already voted to discontinue, so that now we've created that Public Works parcel that they're now coming to you to pick up the rights to.
Okay. Oh, I see. So we don't need to do the double vote, you're saying?
Right, so the discontinuance has already happened.
Got
That airspace has been removed from the public right-of-way, so it's just the next step of them acquiring the land from the city.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Other colleagues want to chime in on either of the District 1 parcels? Good, okay. All right, thank you. So I'm told Counselor Janey was in slightly by a hair before Counselor Steele. Okay, so we will move to docket number 0980, the 2 Roxbury parcels.
Yes, thank you, Counselor. Yes, as the fact sheet states, we're looking for a surplus for a portion of land that abuts 135 Dudley as well as 2406 Washington Street. This was really a matter of housekeeping, if I could say, Counselor. And what this will allow for us to do is, in conjunction with the Plan Dudley Square, Counselor, will allow for us to the RFP is out now as we speak, but this allows for our boundaries to be clear. And this is a process that we started through our due diligence. And so this is what we have will allow for 135 to be developed as Dudley Commercial. It would allow for a portion of the library parcel to go to them, as well as the Boston Police Department as well.
Counselor Janey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. And thank you. I heard you say earlier, Donald, that normally the process is to do the surplus and then the RFP. Can you talk about how this process, why this one was different and the RFP came first?
Well, part of it was there was a lot of, I guess, housekeeping that needed to be done. And as we started to look at the parcels in and of itself, as we planned for what was going to be developed, we realized that in order for it to be clean and clear, if I could say, that there were boundaries that needed to be set. There was also some other parcels that we wanted to have a clear understanding on how we can consolidate those into the bigger footprint of the lot. And so that's, sort of what we had to do, working back and forth with the surveyor, but also moving the Plain Dudley process along as well and not having that be held up.
And that timeline, just for folks who are watching,
Yes.
if you want to talk about that process, the RFP process?
Yes, so that, the Plain Dudley process is, I would like to be and say I'm excited about where we're at right now, but that was a 2-year, 2+ process of engaging the residents of Roxbury into some public land that we had in the area, and how would we want to go about repurposing it and what the community wanted to see out of the RFPs that were coming from D&D as well as the BPDA. It was a robust process. As I said, it was roughly about 2.5 years. And it got us to a point where we now have 4 RFPs on the street. They were released on July 16th. They're due back in October. We wanted folks to have as much time as they needed to do their due diligence and to respond to those requests for proposals.
Wonderful. And so the 135, is that the old B2?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Can you talk about environmental impact and diversity, how the community will continue to be engaged? So you mentioned the 2-year process. I went to some of those meetings,
Right.
very robust discussions, and
Yes.
my interest is in making sure that the community continue to have a voice throughout the process to ensure the equity inclusion piece, to ensure that there are the temporary jobs as well as the opportunity to build wealth, to make sure that this kind of fits with what we're looking to see in Dudley in terms of Dudley being a commercial district. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, Counselor.
Generally speaking, I know the RFPs haven't come back, but just
Right.
what the plans are to keep
So
folks
I
engaged.
think that what we got out of that process, Counselor, and again, I appreciate your involvement in it because you were at a number of the meetings, so I do want to thank you for that. But what we wanted to do was to really take advantage of what we heard from the community. Anti-displacement language we incorporated in the RFP. For one of the first times, we now had diversity and inclusion language in our RFPs, which is something that I piloted on Blue Hill Avenue, but really I knew that that was going to make a huge impact within the context of this project here. I would also like to say that our engagement hasn't stopped, and I think we've left ourselves open to continue that dialogue. And I know that there's been some opposition on one side or the other about, kind of how it was done. But I think that we have not sort of, put our feet in the sand and said, no, we don't want to hear, because we spent a lot of time just really wordsmithing, really making sure that the RFP spoke and was clear on the demands that we heard from the community. So relative affordability and making sure that that was there, making sure that folks weren't going to be displaced. That's what the concern was, is that when we brought in these new housing units, how was that going to ultimately impact the folks that were there? And we wanted to make sure that if you were responding to this RFP, you were going to have a plan in place where constituents were not going to be displaced. And so I feel very strongly about that language that we've been able to incorporate.
And I really do appreciate you being very responsive and hearing those concerns and making sure that we got some anti-displacement language and the equity and inclusion language in the RFP. That was certainly very important to me. And I just want to make sure moving forward that there are still opportunities for residents to participate in the process.
Yes, Councilor, what will be, what I like to tell folks is that we haven't given up on our manner in which we engage our constituency. And so, if you're someone that is still uses snail mail, by all means, reach out to my project managers that way. If it's going on our website and using our web portal, by all means, engage us that way. But, I'm active and I go to community meetings as well. And so I try not to allow I might be in a different neighborhood and a constituent may ask about this process. I want them to be informed as well. And so we've made sure that dialogue is going to be open and ongoing throughout the process. I think what's exciting about this is the PRCs. And so that evaluation process where the community is involved, again, to me, is a very exciting part of it, because folks are again, now kind of sitting at the table like we do when we evaluate proposals that come in. So I'm excited about that as well.
Wonderful. And just really quickly, the other piece of land on Washington, what strip is that?
2147? Oh, okay.
It says here 2406.
Right.
Counselor, the piece of land, if you drove out to Dudley Square, you'd see the library on your left and the police station on your right.
And when you say police station, you mean the current?
The new police station.
Okay, yep.
That piece of land in between that goes back up through the courthouse and that parking lot. The city of Boston still owns that entire parcel. We own the land that the courthouse is on. That piece in the middle, what we're trying to do is we're trying to put that out for development. Part of that, geographically wise, is one parcel number. And then part of it is what used to be the former Jewish Community Center that we took years ago. Part of that's going to, part of that little parcel in front, which is, the address is 2406 Washington Street, is going to continue to be used by the police department, and the other slice that we're taking off is going to go out with the parcel at 135 Dudley. But it's right there at 135 Dudley.
Okay. And then the last thing, this is really the last thing. I'm there quite often, and I know the BPS is using it for parking now. I'm wondering, when that parking is gone, how we're going to make sure that there is sufficient, and Dudley is a transit hub, so obviously people do use public transportation, and I'm one of them, but I know our businesses do count on people being able to kind of park their cars. And so I don't know what plan is in place to ensure that while it's under construction, that there's going to be ample parking, and then afterwards, whatever project comes, that there will be parking on site. And then in the interim, right now, as it is parking, it's just very unkept. There are just weeds, overgrown, it's just a mess. And so I'm hoping that we can do a better, and this may not be you, I can appreciate that. I can talk to the folks at ISD, but I just want to make sure that it looks good now, and that our residents as well as business owners will have the parking situation taken care of to the best that we can moving forward.
Right, and that the parking that you're referring to, Counselor, is the parking that's being used by the school department?
Yes.
And that was arranged as folks started to transition into the Bowling building. There was some discussions over time about a set number of parking spaces for folks that had to have vehicle access or something. So we haven't kind of gotten to how that's going to be addressed systematically, because we're not actively looking at a date so much so on that site just yet. But we have to look at, sort of a matter in which we mitigate, parking in the area. That is a private, sort of parking lot just for school officials, and I believe we will work with them to identify a manner in which they can continue to park.
Yeah, and I would just say this. So parking down Dudley has been an ongoing issue where business owners have been pushing to make sure that there's parking. There was never any parking available. Suddenly, the school department comes, they found parking. Now that parking is going to be gone at some point, and it's just going to have a ripple effect in terms of how it impacts everyone else. And so I'm just raising it for that reason.
Well, let me add to it, Councilor, and what I would say is we've drafted language in the RFP for a developer to build that parking space we talked about in Dudley for all those years. Constituents wanted, once the B2 station was gone, they wanted that to be, a parking structure. And so what we've done is written in the RFP, and you have an option to respond with or without that parcel. And so we're excited that we have now had, that language is actually in there, and I'm hoping that a development team will take advantage of that.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So just for my clarity, could someone walk through the specific parcel map on this fact sheet and just clarify sort of by color what each of those subparcels are?
So the kind of purple, that's the library site. The tan, just below the yellow, that's the courthouse. The yellow above, that's the site in reference. And then to your left, the blue, that's the BPD site. And then the green, that would be that's an open space area that we have there as well.
Okay, and so
And
what we're...
the blue is actually divided into two pieces, because the front where the police station is going to stay there, obviously.
Right.
And we're hopeful that we'll get a proposal that will build a garage behind the police station, which will allow for the police parking and address many of the concerns in the community for parking.
And in terms of timeline, because this RFP is already out, as Councilor Janey noted, is there is there a need to urgency around the council taking this vote?
Again, I would say it's more housekeeping than anything else.
Okay.
And yes.
Okay, great. Then I'll discuss with the district councilor afterwards. Just a quick note, our liaison, who has the history of all of our institutional memory here, is pointing out that we need the 2/3 vote of the council whenever there's a discontinuance, as you said, right? And then 2/3 vote, a 2/3 vote to make something surplus. But then once the specific buyer has been identified, that the council has to ratify that sale of anything other than school land with 2/3 votes. Is that your understanding?
No, we've worked this out in the past, that once the city council surpluses it and assigns it to the Department of Public Facilities, the Commission of the Department of Public Facilities has authority to sell at that point.
Okay, well, Juan is telling me that the language says all sales of land and buildings other than school land and all appropriations for purchase of land require 2/3. Well, we can follow up afterwards, but,
We've cleared that, we've cleared the process with the Law Department, and we've had the issue in the past, so, but. we
do you
only
have a
need-
memo you could forward? I would love to just
I'll go looking
understand.
for it, sure.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're good with these parcels. In that case, we will move to the Alston Brighton parcels. Why don't we start with 0506, Leo M. Birmingham Parkway?
Yes. Morning, Council. All right. This is just a regular shaped parcel, and the commercial abutter is interested in doing some soil mills to support a retaining wall. And that, the parcel it was in the care and custody of Public Works, which declared the property, they didn't need it. And so they asked that it would come to us. We put out an RFP for that site, and it was due back on the 16th, and we're currently vetting it right now. As part of that, Council, what we wanted to make sure was that, in using the site, that it would maintain some level of open space. We do understand that the state is interested in possibly creating some housing on some land that they have, so we wanted to make sure with that land, if it doesn't maintain its open space, that it would be donated to the other development as open space.
Okay. So, and I am familiar with it, it's kind of on a cliff.
Yes.
Right? So I'm supposing that the Maserati dealership that's going in there, they've replied to the RFP?
Yes.
And any other
No, we
folks?
just had one.
Just
response.
one?
Yeah.
And it's a 14,000 square foot lot. Can you share with us what their offer was?
Oh, Council, I'd have to get back to you on that one. I didn't have that with me.
Yeah, I'd like
But
to
I'll
know that
definitely do
number.
that. Yep.
And as you said, it's to help with their retaining wall. And when you say that, it abuts DCR land, and there may be something in the works
Right.
down the road, how much of that 14,000 do you think will be needed to put towards the other potential project, I guess?
That I'm not sure, just sort of based on design, Council, but based on the covenant that we would have on it for it to maintain its open space, I'm not sure if there's anything more to it than that they could change the context of it. That I'm not sure, Council.
So I'm just a little unclear, because if they responded to an RFP for 14,000 plus square feet of land, how do we get them to potentially donate down the road?
Well, based upon what they put in their RFP, we could write the deed that there'd be a reverter clause based upon the actual plans of how much space they need to build that supporting structure, which I understand is going to be mostly seen as being underground, that once it's done, you wouldn't see it.
Right.
And at that point, we could then hammer out those details, because if it comes to us, once we review the RFP, we take it to the Public Facilities Commission, they issue a tentative designation, we publicize who we might do business with, we review everything, we get the plans, we draw up a deed, working with Corporation Counsel, and we bring it back for a second vote to the Public Facilities Commission.
Okay.
To-
So whatever they offered in their RFP, there's still going to be some negotiation possibly?
Yes.
Okay. So since the vote's on Wednesday, I'd like that ASAP, please. Thanks. I'm good.
Okay. And I'll make sure that we'll discuss prior to Wednesday if that's
Thanks.
gotten to you and you're okay. So docket number 1024 then, also in Alston.
So this is the stub end of Everett Street. Everett Street hits Braintree Street, and it kind of ends there, but it technically continues as a right-of-way all the way up to the train tracks. It's been this condition for a very long time. When you go out there, it looks and it feels like the parking lot of the building next to it. And we've been in this condition for a significant period of time. With the movement on Stop and Shop and Alston Yards, formalizing how this works out became more important. There are we do not use this as a street. It's not needed for public rights to travel, but there are existing utilities within that street that have certain rights that are implicit through being within a public right. So the notion of granting private utility rights and clarifying making sure that the utilities have an uninterrupted easement through that section, but discontinuing it for a street allows them to kind of organize their property up against the Stop and Shop development.
So, Amy, I'm going to need the fact sheets, too, for these, please.
Absolutely.
And I'm very familiar with that little space that's been going back 10 years with Mr. Blank.
Yep.
Is this only from the
Braintree
air
Street?
right, the air rights from the bridge down over to the building?
Correct.
So it's a little sliver.
Right.
The rest of it is owned by Stop and Shop. And I just want to say for the record that Michael Blank, who owns the building, has been an incredibly good neighbor. Back when I first got elected, there was a significant dumping problem there, homeless problem there, and he helped when Stop and Shop ignored us for almost a year. So I just wanted to put that out there, that this is well-deserved by Mr. Blank, and I'll be supporting it.
Yeah, it's essentially the same situation we had up against the stockyard with the weird stub that just led to the train tracks and had no utility for anybody but the abutters.
Right, great. And I'm sorry, did they work, I know that there was some issues with Stop and Shop as an
I think
abutter?
that all of the issues came down to utility rights and the ability to pull future connections through that. And the way that this is going to read is that all utility rights will remain unchanged. While the land will be private, all utilities will have the same rights that they do today.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay. So that is, according to my notes, that is all of the parcels. Anything else that you feel the counselors should know?
I just want to thank you for your time today, councilors.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We will adjourn this hearing and, is there anyone signed up at this point? I'm sorry. If, can you grab the sheet one? Thank you. Okay, so we did this. We did, okay. All right. So Mark and Mark, is Diane still, where's Diane? Oh, Diane, why didn't you come down too? Because that's the entirety of everyone that we have signed up, so we might as well see it. Is anyone else hoping to chime in on any of these parcels? Okay. So again, please identify yourself, your name, affiliation, address for the record, and then feel free to take a few minutes.
Good morning, Councilor Wu. My name is Mark Lacasse. I am an attorney with the firm Lacasse Law LLC, 75 Arlington Street in Boston. I represent Mark Savatsky to my left, who is the developer of 90 Cottage Street in East Boston.
Good morning. My name is Mark Savatsky. I'm here on behalf of 90 Cottage Street LLC as the developer for this parcel, and thank you for the opportunity.
So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Councilor Edwards. I'm Diane Royal, and I'm president of the North End Music and Performing Arts Center.
Great. So why don't we, if Cottage Street wants to offer any specific testimony, and then we'll move to the north end after that.
Thank you. We just wanted to make sure that we were present in case there were any questions on 90 Cottage Street. It is a 7-unit condominium building currently under construction on what was formerly a vacant surface parking lot. We went through a robust community process as part of the zoning process last year, resulting in approval by the Zoning Board of Appeal in November of 2017. Thereafter, in connection with the 3 small balconies which are shown on the front of the building, which were created by the architect to provide some degree of usable open space towards satisfaction of that requirement under the zoning code. As you can see, they project slightly over the sidewalk, approximately 2.8 feet. So by petition to the Public Improvement Commission, we sought to vertically discontinue the city's rights over the sidewalk so that these balconies could project out over the sidewalk. The projection is 16.9 square feet for each of the balconies. We commissioned an appraisal, as we were required to do, to place a value on the air rights so acquired, and are prepared to pay that amount as part of the transfer by deed after the council's vote to discontinue those air rights. That's it in a nutshell. And that's just a close-up of one of the balconies on the building.
Any questions? What was the appraisal amount?
$6,000.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Edwards.
Diane?
Yes. I was delighted when I heard the gentleman earlier say that a music school is interested. The North End Music and Performing Arts Center is very interested in this building. Our present building of 540 square feet is located on the Paul Revere Mall, and believe it or not, this building on Untitled Street is approximately 150 feet away, according to my pace. So we were very excited when we heard that this is available for an RFP. As you may know, the music school has grown tremendously the last several years, and we're so happy for that. Unfortunately, we've run out of space, and this building would certainly do very well for us for music classrooms, which we desperately need. We presently rent space throughout the North End and Charlestown. We've moved into Charlestown, so we're growing, and that's a good thing. So we look forward to the public hearing. We will be here again. Sherry Snow had another appointment today, but she will accompany me. And we thank you so much for having the hearing in such a prompt schedule.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Great. So seeing no other takers for public testimony, we will adjourn this hearing and look to take at least some of the votes this next upcoming council meeting. This adjourns the City Council's Committee on Planning, Development, and Transportation hearing on dockets number 0506, 0807, 0980, and dockets numbers 0808 and 1024. This hearing is adjourned.